All right. So, did each of the pairs have a chance to kind of figure out how you were going to demo? Do you have a person who's going to drive and a person who's going to talk, or do you have a kind of a? You want to?
Not at all.
No. Okay, that's fine.
No.
We'll wing
I
it.
think
That's
that
totally cool.
I think that Mindy has to do all of the demonstrations since her
Yeah.
computer.
Yeah, that's cruel. Ethan.
I know. It's horrible. I'll do it.
Awesome. Well, we'll start with Ethan then.
Okay. All right. Hey, Mindy. So I'll kind of show some stuff of how it works, and you just break in as you see necessary. Yeah?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. Oh, let's see. So I can share as long as you let me share my screen, right?
Oh yeah, go ahead and share your
yeah.
screen.
Cool.
So yeah, maybe describe what your task was.
Yeah, sure. So, all right, let me pull up some notes and stuff, kind of think about presenting this. So basically our acceptance criteria was just to use React Router DOM as a dependency. So that was very easy. That's just the first day installing that. And then we had to do two specific things: click a link within the app to show a different view. And then when a link is clicked, the browser URL was supposed to update to show the current view. So basically putting in React's versions of links. And
Oh, there's Mindy. Okay.
do we see Mindy?
Yes,
Yeah.
I got my computer running.
Lovely. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. So that was our criteria. And the first part, this is kind of like what Michelle was saying about having like a framework. The first thing we had to do was just think, well, what views are we going to want at all? Because there's nothing that says you have to do this, this, and this view. So we looked at the example app that Andrew had built in the first place and kind of guesstimated that it looks like there's, a screen for adding items, a screen for the list, and a screen for each item in particular. And so decided to make 3. And the only next thing I could think of would just be show how it works. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Mindy?
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about, so I've done test-driven development in a couple different workshops that I've been a part of, and I really like it. Hey, Ethan, are you up for trying it? And Ethan, you hadn't done it before, right?
I was just telling them about how much I liked it before you got on the call.
Hey, there you go. Yeah. So, just trying to take the approach of like, what is the smallest thing that what do we need to start with, and then kind of go from there. Mm-hmm. And so like we started just getting the testing platform to even work at all. And then from there, just adding a single link and making sure that that link was going to take us to the place we expected it to, and then just adding each different component from there on out. So that was like kind of the process that we went through.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Let's see it.
All right. I will show you a demo of our links working. Sharing my screen. So we started out on a home page, have very simple, ugly, no CSS links up here. And other than the home page, you can go to a page that shows a list, which now, very nicely, you can actually kind of see what this list page is all about because it's populated with items that our Firebase stuff is putting in. Before, it was just a note that said this is the items or the list page. So this is even better. And then a final link for the add page, which again actually has an input now. And as far as we can tell, they all work back and forth. And other than a little bit of loading, there's no hiccups in navigating around throughout the basic 3 views of the app.
Cool. It looks really great.
Yeah, so it's
congratulations.
Thank you.
So it's updating the URL and everything too, so you kind of keeping the state in the URL. Good.
Right. And I had a question about that. I think so we use like browser router, and then the other option is hash router. And if we used hash router, then it wouldn't have updated the URL. It would have been like weird bunch of letters or something.
Hash list and hash add.
I think hash routers are more for like anchoring, right?
Oh.
Like anchoring to different elements on the screen.
Yeah, there was a time when that was kind of how you had to do it, but actual URLs is a better way to go. Because then if the user hits the reload or something, or it's just more like a real URL.
Can you click back and forth through the history stack?
Through the history
Can you like
stack?
click backwards in your browser?
Use the back button.
I know that you can because I tested it, but that's something important to test.
Okay, nice. So that could be another thing we actually write a test for. Can you just hit back and get through it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Beautiful, though. Really great work.
Yeah, nice job. Well done.
Thank you very much. Let's see if I can open this up and figure out how to stop. Yeah, habanero eye drops is definitely my favorite. Also, it was very satisfying that I was just trying to figure out how the Firebase stuff worked last night, and I tried adding stuff, and it just added, and now it's actually there. Yeah, that was very cool.
Incredible. Great job.
All right.
Thanks.
Good job. All right. Claudia, Michelle.
Yeah. Do you want to share your screen, Michelle? I don't have mine pulled up unless you don't have it.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry. I was just looking at the notes that you put in the PR, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
And the one about sorry, I'm a little late to this. The one about on there was some. This is GitHub complaining that the files is in with a new line. Like, that's crazy that some things are that particular. That obviously JavaScript is fine, but other languages, like, that's nuts.
Yep.
That is for every file, or just for that gitignore file? Every file that would complain?
Every file, yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a good practice to be in, to have that one extra new line.
It was just interesting to me to read that. So we started out obviously understanding, like, both of us, I think, understood. We both worked with React before in like connecting to a database, and we actually thought when we were gonna have to connect to it, we were gonna have to use like Axios or something. So then like learning about Firebase and being like, oh snap, this just connects on its own. We don't have to actually do that. I think that was pretty helpful, at least to me. I was like, okay, cool, one less thing. I haven't touched React in like a minute, so for me, I think a lot of my initial hiccups were just like kind of getting my brain back used to the syntax and how React laid out, like how components work and how you import them in, all that. But like to the point, I also didn't like go into, I made my own mistakes where I didn't go into enough detail looking at everything that you guys had provided with us in the initial GitHub, because I didn't realize that you had created the Firebase JS page. So I was like, oh, all of that's already in there. So I had like started working on that as well, like creating my own, and then I realized that you'd already set all that up. So once all of that for me was done, we were able to get working on it. And we initially had some problems with, I kind of talked about this before, the React Firestore, and there wasn't a whole lot of tutorials out there on that package in particular. There's loads on just Firebase, but the Firestore wasn't a whole lot, which is nice because it's challenging, but it was, so that was one of those things. And it's, for some reason, I wasn't able at first to get it to connect. And I think it was like, those were my errors with React, not with Firestore or Firebase. So once that got going, we're able to easily, you guys can see this page, right? The database
Yep.
page. Sorry. We were able to connect pretty easily. And so I just made my component was just getting the list to appear on the site. Voila. Right here, where Mindy and Ethan put together. I think for one of the things, I think I may have put this in my notes on my PR, one of the things that I personally need to look more into is making it dynamic, because right now it's just writing directly to like the items page or the items collection. So it's like, oh, how do we make this something so if like we were to create a new collection that it would also show that? So those were like thoughts for like my next steps. But obviously for this, just to be able to connect to it, it was easiest just to connect to the items, like to specify exactly the path. So yeah, this is our little, you can't see these right now. Like if you click on it, you can see, oh, another pizza. So there it is.
There it is. Cool.
Do you want to, what do you want me to do, Claudia? Do you want me to just like click on your page?
Yeah, just click on add and I'll talk about it really quick. Yeah, so the hardest part was definitely finding any documentation or tutorials on React Firestore. And it wasn't until I saw Stacy's Medium article that I was like, oh my God, it's so easy. And yeah, so a lot of this code is pretty much what you had in there, but it made a lot of sense. Yeah, so you just type any list item you want in there, click on add
donuts.
item, like donuts, yeah. Go to the list and somewhere in there, yeah, donut.
And I saw it show up on the left-hand window too, the second to the bottom ID there, T3. A couple down a couple.
This one. Okay.
There
yeah.
it is. Donuts. Yep.
So one of the things that I know like you can do within Firestore is make it sort. Obviously, you could probably use the Firebase as well. So I hadn't implemented that yet because I didn't work out like the timestamp issue, which I don't really know if it was that big a thing. I just didn't get to it. So like if we sorted this, we could, make it, I'm guessing like the most recent on top or on bottom, however you want to put it. Does it also do that within the database? Can you do that? Or does the database sort it on its own?
The database, I think the way that list right there is sorted is by alphabetically by the key itself.
Okay.
And I think that's actually mirrored in your list. If you're like, it's sort of the default sort order is by the keys.
Huh. I wonder how that works.
Keys randomly generated, so there's no way that we could control that.
No, you can enter in your own key. I did it a couple times, the ID.
Oh, okay.
You could specify the keys if you wanted to, but then you have to come up with unique keys every time. But yeah, you could sort. Yeah, the component allows you to sort, and actually, you could, if you're connected directly to Firebase, you could sort by name or whatever other fields are on the item.
I didn't even think about that. It's right here. My bad.
Yep. No, that's not cool.
When you filter right there, it's just going to filter in Firebase's UI.
Yeah.
So it's not going to reflect over there.
Like the actual page. Yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
That's cool though.
Really fantastic.
Real time. Yep.
Cool.
That's great.
Good work.
Nice job, everybody. It's exciting. It's really fun to see you all like get stuff done in the first week. It's great.
So good.
Yep. So I just want to we'll do a quick little thing on code reviews. So I'll share my screen and got this all of y'all here. Okay. So this will be really quick, and then we'll just have a quick kind of discussion about it. And I'll share the link to this afterwards, but not a lot to the presentation actually. All right. So on code reviews, so we'll just cover what is a code review, why do we code review, and then what makes a good one. So a great way to think about code reviews is just as a conversation about a set of changes. So it's like you're saying, hey, I want to make this change, and the other person's like, oh, great, but what about this? And just think of it. I think some people can kind of get defensive about changes or about the feedback and those kinds of things, but it's really just a conversation. We all have the same goal. So the mechanics of it are that you submit a PR, others comment on it, you integrate the changes, and you kind of just keep going around in that loop until everyone's satisfied, and then you're able to merge the stuff in. So now, why do we do code reviews? I mean, for us, the primary thing is to share knowledge. So we are all new to this stuff, and we have one pair working on one problem and the other pair is working on the other problem. So this is a chance for kind of keep everybody up to date on all the latest changes in the app. There's some mythology around that code reviews can help you catch bugs, or and it's actually not a very good mechanism for catching bugs in software. It's really hard for people to read code and catch bugs. It's much easier for computers to catch bugs. So, tests and running the code and all those kind of things are where you actually catch the bugs. And enforcing coding standards, it's not really the right place to do that either. Linters are a much better thing to do that. Use software to kind of enforce the format of your code. There are other things that code reviews are good for, but for us, this is kind of the primary thing. We just want everybody to kind of just share knowledge and kind of keep up to date on everything that's happening. All right. So what makes a good code review? I think this is a little bit hidden by the window here, but anyway, start by asking questions. So it's really hard to to come across as judgy if you're asking a question, right? If you're saying, "Oh, that doesn't make sense," well, that's the person's going to feel defensive about that. But if you're like, "Can help me understand what this line is trying to do," or what is, I haven't seen this pattern before. Can you explain it to me? Those kinds of things are kind of a better starting point and a way to kind of open up that conversation. When I say annotate your code to orient the reviewer, kind of what I'm talking about there is, well, first of all, comments in your code. So anywhere that there's something maybe it's kind of tricky that's going on, so something that's not kind of obvious by looking at the code. Regular expressions are a good example of this. If you have a regular expression, it's unless it's really simple, it's probably not going to be immediately obvious to the next person who looks at it. So you can say, I'm trying to match a string that's 4 characters long or something, just kind of explain it in a comment. That's one type of annotation. Another type of annotation is just the PR kind of as when you submit it. So, having a thorough PR that kind of covers the why and the how of the change. So not so much the what, because that's the code itself. So the reviewer will look at the code and they'll see what the what is. They'll see how you did it, but why are you making this change, and how did you go about it? What was your approach? And then a third way to annotate is, once the PR is submitted, you could even potentially leave kind of breadcrumbs in the PR itself, like kind of go in preemptively and leave comments on certain lines, saying, hey, I know this, like, as an example, like, I know this is a little non-standard, but I did it because of this or something, so when the person goes to review, they're going to kind of have some guidance as to what your thinking was. The other thing that makes a good code review is just to sort of default to approval. So a lot of the articles, I actually have a bunch of articles, I'll send links out, kind of the things that I read up on in order to kind of put this together. And a lot of them were talking about sort of nitpicks, and that's not, code reviews are not, it's not a good place to kind of be really picky about little details. If you find yourself, saying like, this is just a nitpick, but maybe just leave it out. And, in general, if the code runs without errors and it does the thing that's supposed to, if you're asking for a change, if you're kind of requiring a change before you give your approval, just make sure that you have a good reason for it. That there's some, oh, this is going to, cause us problems down the road or something like that. Kind of think it through a little bit. So that's kind of all I have. I'll kind of open it up to people to kind of let's just have a conversation or discussion about how did it feel to code review each other's code this week, and how did that go? How, like, are the things that you kind of have after being through it once, would you approach it a little differently or anything?
I think for me, it's still like regarded around like imposter syndrome, where it's like you're like going through their code and being like, well, this is how I would like, I think they could break up the components, but is that really right? That's just how I think, like, I haven't done this a lot. I haven't done it in the real world. Like, is this just, what I read? It's the right way. Like, so it's just an imposter syndrome of not fully knowing if like what I'm saying is like even correct.
Oh yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense.
I think that's why it would be reassuring to start by asking questions. That bullet point A, just like being like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, why did you do that? Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense too. So you're not coming in acting like an authority if you're not really
sure. Like,
I
fully know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get much of a chance to. I just time-wise, my timing wasn't aligning well with looking at the review or looking too much at Claudia and Michelle's code. So I didn't get much of a chance to really experience that, but I will in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I could see code reviews being like a pretty rough time for like depending on like what your team is like I could really see that being like trying to make sure you say stuff in a way that's not gonna, like, I want to make sure that I'm being affirming and helpful at the same time, and like I could see that being a difficult situation for certain teams.
Yeah, it's almost something you want to look for when you're, if you're interviewing for a job or something, if you can kind of get at whether they have a good code review culture, the
Mm-hmm.
team that you're entering. It makes such a difference. If people are generally, supportive and, they kind of have that we're all going in the same direction mentality, and, approach it with humility and all those kind of things. I mean, it's so much nicer than, there are some pretty caustic coding cultures out there.
Yeah. So side note on that, has anybody seen The Good Place?
Oh yeah.
I just started watching it because literally 7 people last week mentioned it. And I was like, I guess I have to watch it now.
Yeah.
It's great. I love it. But one of their things on set is best idea wins. And I listen to the podcast because I'm that nerdy about it. And they talk about it a lot. Like, it's just the idea of like taking ego out of the picture altogether. Like, they're, the best idea could come from the person who's, dropping off sandwiches, like anything, wherever you come from, and just kind of trying to get ego out of the situation. I'm like, I like that mindset. I think that's a great mindset.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe,
Ethan, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just thinking actually, I liked Michelle and Claudia's feedback on Mindy and I's work, that we could break it down into separate components more. And in retrospect, whenever I read that, I kind of just jumped in and did what I thought she meant. And then it turned out that even that needed a little bit more fixing that Mindy did, because you could kind of take what I was doing a step farther. So you might even want, in the future, I might want to be asking questions about the questions they ask, make sure that I'm not just almost like as an alternative to being defensive, saying, oh yeah, I'll fix that. And then it wasn't what they meant anyway,
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, and I think as a reviewer, to make improvements, you could just assume that whoever you're reviewing, they don't know what you know, and you could just be more thorough with explaining.
Yeah. So a way I've heard that expressed that I really like is, imagine that the person has zero knowledge of the thing, but they're infinitely smart, and like kind of word it that way. Like they will understand, but you have to kind of give them the full context, and then there's no misunderstanding.
I think seeing your reviews too, Andrew, are super helpful. Like, you give good detailed feedback. Like, it's really nice to have something to kind of go off of. It's like, oh, this is a real code review.
Yeah, and not just saying like fix this and fix this, but like, I really like what you did there.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel like, especially for this first week, we had very different jobs to do, but for us to code review each other, we were obliged to learn some about what the other people were doing. Honestly, I was learning about Firebase at the time that I could have been reviewing the other team's code, because I was still, I don't know anything about Firebase, so I have to do a couple tutorials on that first.
Yeah, for sure. Alejandro, how does all this line up with how we do code reviews at work?
Well, that's a good question. It aligns. Yeah, we do almost the same thing. It's like we don't have, like, our ego doesn't play any role when we review our code. It doesn't matter if I create the pull request, or someone else. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, we are basically the same when we create a pull request. So, and another thing that is really important is that, you should not take the code reviews personal. Like, it is not criticizing you as a person. And a code review, like, it doesn't define who you are at all. So that's a good thing. And also, like, the comments in Zapier are like really kind. So you will never see something like, oh my God, what did you do this? You're going to break the app. That is like never going to happen, like, ever. So everything is like, oh, maybe I think that this could be done in a different way that maybe is better, or, but it is always about growing and taking the code to a better direction. Like, the system should evolve on every PR. And I mean, it is like what you do, people. Like, yeah, it is what you do basically. So in a very like friendly and safe space to discuss ideas. That's it. You discuss ideas. You don't discuss like people or anything.
Yeah. And ideally it'll be like that, but there are places where they don't have a good code review culture and things. And that's just no fun.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
That's not how we do it at Collab Lab. We have a good code review culture here.
Yeah.
It's like you come at it from an interesting perspective when you're new, because I too struggle with that. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm just like looking at this code and I don't know what's going on. So I don't even know what to ask or what to say. But when you ask those questions about like, and it can be as simple as like, what even is happening here? Like, can you tell me more about this like function or something? And like, not only are you learning because you're asking the question, but you're causing the person who wrote the code to reflect and figure out why they wrote things a certain way and like put into words why they did it that way. So maybe they just followed a tutorial, but now this has spun them into like going to research, like, well, why did I do that? Because now I have to have a reason to back it up. And you give yourself like a platform to stand on and like some like really well-developed knowledge, because now you're having to like tell somebody else. And so you're like, I have to be really sure because I'm about to tell other people about this. And so it's like, I feel like when you get those questions in your code review and you're able to like offer insight, that's like where so much of the most like deep learning happens. So I love code reviews for that.
Mm-hmm.
Another important thing is that it is completely fine to push back on changes. So if you think that the thing that you do was fine and someone is requesting changes, it is okay to say like, no, I think that this is the right way to do it because this reason and this other reason, instead of agreeing to everything. Basically what Ethan said, like, it is fine to say no, like, I think this is the right solution because of this. And the other person, I'm sure it will say like, oh yeah, like, you're right. Or, oh, maybe you're still wrong because this or that. But, you know, like, it is a friendly environment to discuss things. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and as long as it is backed up by reasons too. I mean, I think that's the important thing. And it's you know, it's not, well, I'm going to do this, you know, I'm going to merge this anyway despite you or something, or because I'm attached to the way I wrote my code or something like that. You know, if somebody brings something up and you have a good counterpoint and it's actually, you know, based on, well, actually I'm trying to go for this thing and I want, you know, I'm hoping to have it structured this way or something, then yeah, you know, you don't have to take all the feedback as gospel, right?
I never even thought about that. This is all us doing Git merges and stuff, and we all like each other and we're cooperating. What if we all hated each other and it was a war and we were just pushing branches and pulling stuff and trying to cut the other ones off? That would be exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe in 7 more weeks or something.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of companies exist like that if you want that kind of culture.
I mean, there are high-profile open source projects that kind of operate like that. It's terrible. I mean, it's just really toxic. And like you just kind of alluded to, it's like you need another 7 weeks. Yeah, it would totally slow you down. You would make so much less progress. So.
For sure.
All right. Well, good job, everybody.
Nice.
Yeah, well done this week. I guess you'll now kind of, I don't know if you all have the project brief. You can kind of see who you're pairing up with for the next week. In the channel, you know, go in and you know, kind of say which story you're taking on. They're all in priority order. If you haven't already, I didn't actually look at the board, but move the cards across to complete or whatever done or whatever the column is called. And yeah, let us know if you have any questions about the next round.
Okay.
Feeling good? Any questions right now? Anything you're like unsure about, or
I do have time. I do. I kind of just have some specific questions that I couldn't find from Googling. Can we delete the app.test.js file? Do we need that for anything? Because we have our own tests and stuff, so I don't know if that is like a redundancy for if you're doing another type of testing.
You probably can, yeah. I mean, if we delete that, we might want to replace it with a Cypress test. I'm not sure.
Okay.
because it's checking that it renders without crashing. I just noticed that. Yeah.
Nice. It seems like I have to run yarn install a lot. Like I have to run yarn install over and over anytime the other person or other team added dependencies. And then it's almost like that's what is getting the dependencies on my local machine. Is that right? That's just how it works.
Yeah.
You just run it again, then you get the stuff that they have in the package.json file or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So anytime package.json changes, you run yarn install. I mean, I think that's probably going to happen less as we go forward. I think we have most of the dependencies in the project now, so
okay, nice.
There may be one or two more times that we have to do that, but yeah, for the most part, I think we're done.
Mindy and I had both agreed we should, we probably don't have to talk about it on the call, just more on Slack, but how we should organize our file of tests, because it could, do we want it like week by week or subject by subject, or are they going to get like convoluted and messed up if we have them organized in a bad way in the file? Or are they all supposed to be separate tests that, each have their own file? So just bringing that up so that we can start considering it, since we're all going to be making tests and working in the same little space week after week in the Cypress folder.
I'd probably recommend doing it component by component. So having a directory like for each, or a file for each component where those tests for that component live. But there's plenty of ways you could do it. That's just one idea.
Cool.
I like that idea. That makes sense.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, where they landed in the last cohort was to have a folder per kind of major component, and the test and the components were all kind of in the directory. So keeps it really, really tight.
That kind of happened though because we were also using Jest tests. So those were like living with their components. But Cypress, I think, is configured to kind of run through like the Cypress directory. So if you're just doing Cypress, but if you want to like start doing like some snapshot testing with like React testing and stuff too, do all the testing. Do it all. Do what you want. It's up to you. See what works and see what doesn't work. If it breaks, do something else.
Okay, nice.
If it's working, you're doing the thing. This is like Collab Lab is about like focusing on collaboration. So there's probably like ways you're going to get into like a new role in a new company and they do things a totally different way, which is fine. But guess what? You've learned how to collaborate. And so you're the superstar. You.
We're the superstars. Yeah.
You are, yeah.
All right.
What else?
That's most of my questions. Appreciate it.
Those are fantastic.
I would just have a quick note that I appreciate you three's like supportiveness. I feel like you're very supportive, and that's great. It's exactly what we need.
100%.
Cool. Yeah, you're welcome. It's really fun. It's like a nice. I mean, I like working with Alejandro too, but it's nice to just kind of do this with people who are you're like trying to get your foothold in tech, and it's just kind of like spending a little bit of time to help you do that, and it's totally fulfilling for me.
Awesome. Appreciate it.
Yep. Cool. Well, that's a good note to end on. We'll see y'all in Slack, and let us know as questions come up, and yeah, I mean we'll kind of see what y'all are able to do this coming week.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool.
Great work, team.
Right. Great work.
Thanks, everybody.
All right,
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Take care.